Okay, yeah. Okay, well, I'll make a start. So today we're going to talk about the Inclusion Café, which is a term time initiative in the psychology department for the University of Exeter. I'm going to present the first part of the presentation, and Helen is going to present the second part of the presentation. Helen has just had to run into another room because we're getting feedback when we do it together. So thankfully, I'm going to start, and then she can join for the second bit. So what are we going to talk about today? So we're going to give you a broad overview of the Inclusion Cafe, including essentially what the Inclusion Cafe looks like, what it is, how we set up these sessions in terms of what the room setup looks like, how we run the sessions with the use of sessional chairs, basically how we advertise the session prior to it running, with advertising materials and emails, and basically everything that we do in order to make this possible and to run a successful Inclusion Cafe. We're also going to provide an overview of a commendation that we got from the BPS Accreditation report that we received in 2022 that spoke about exemplary EDI standards, of which the Inclusion Cafe was a part of this. We'll also show you briefly a survey that we ran for the Inclusion Cafe, including some really excellent feedback from that survey. And then we will talk about next steps, so what we want to do with the Inclusion Cafe going forward. Okay, so just some background about EDI initiatives in the psychology department at the University of Exeter. They fall under three themes. So the first is staff-focused initiatives. So the EDI committee, for instance, we have an Athena-Swan working group at the moment. Student-focused initiatives. So we have things like the academic peer mentorship scheme. We have neurodiversity and higher education schemes that are run by students, and also students and staff initiatives. And these are my favorite kind of initiatives, where we bring students and staff together. We have things like the Decolonized Psychology Book Club series, and the Inclusion Cafe falls under this. I should also say that the psychology department is currently in possession of an Athena-Swan Silver Award. And we're currently applying for Athena-Swan Gold, and the Inclusion Cafe is forming part of this application. Okay, so what is the Inclusion Cafe? Well, in sum, it is a sort of informal gathering that we center around different themes, usually according to whatever the theme is of that month. So, for instance, we'll have themes on things like Black History Month, LGBT History Month. We have themes from women in STEM. So we try to create the session around what is happening at the time out in the wider world. And essentially what it is we create a space in the department, and it can be any space as long as it's available to us. And we get students and staff together, and we orientate the space in a way that it's sort of conducive to good discussions. So that usually includes getting a bunch of chairs or tables and orientating them into a circle, and we provide snacks and hot drinks. This image here is a great example of where we've taken over whatever space that we can get our hands on. So this is the staff room in the psychology department, and clearly this room is not really designed to be made into a sort of collegiate discussion space, but we will, as I say, we will take whatever room that we can get hold of, and we will do what we can to turn it into something that is suitable for the Inclusion Cafe. So we really will, we will get whatever space that we can get our hands on. And these sessions generally go on for about 90 minutes, and sessions have chair people. So they never used to be chaired, but me and Helen would sort of informally chair these sessions. But we kind of figured as the years went on that it became pretty difficult for us to do it this way, because we didn't always have the lived experience to run these sessions. So actually, as of last year, we started advertising for colleagues in the department to chair the sessions. So in these sessions, we with the permission of the attendees, we take notes And so we sort of capture the themes of what's being talked about in these cafes, and then we feed those notes to the senior leadership team and the EDI committee. And we, of course, can't make any promises about what will happen with this information, but we, full disclosure to the attendees, that if you have something that you want to raise with us about a theme, then we will feed that forward to senior management. Another thing that we do is we have big boards of paper, 2 big boards of paper, and we can put them up anywhere in the cafe. And usually we have some ideas or thoughts that attendees might wish to record. So one case is ideas for change, and another is experiences and challenges. So this was captured from last year's neurodiversity cafe, and you can see students and staff have sort of collected their thoughts around these themes, and then we can also feed these notes forward to the senior leadership team and the EDI committee as well. Okay, so in our last BPS accreditation report in 2022, the psychology department received 2 special commendations. One commendation was for exceptional EDI standards, and a part of that commendation mentioned the Inclusion Café. And I'll read a quote from that commendation now. So the quote says, "The proactive approach and commitment to equality, diversity, and inclusion is exemplary and goes beyond and above the accredited standards. There is an Inclusion Café, which is a space to learn on human experiences for both students and staff. Overall, all these aspects positively contribute to enhance the student learning experience on the program." So we're certainly very proud of that. Okay, so the Inclusion Cafe isn't something that just happens. We need to do a lot of advertising beforehand. We need to really put in the work to make sure that we can reach as many students and staff in the psychology department as possible. And that includes a few things. So it includes creating advertising material prior to the session. And full disclosure, I have no artistic capability at all. So Helen creates all of the advertising material. And actually, it was my partner who created the logo for the Inclusion Cafe, which now appears on everything. So I really am making good use of everybody who's got artistic ability to advertise the Inclusion Cafe. So as soon as we can, we get the advertising material up as posters all across the departments, maybe even across other buildings that psychology colleagues and psychology students frequent. But we also send emails out at the beginning of term with the full roster of Inclusion Cafes, and then reminder emails of sessions that are up and coming. And in those sessions, in those emails rather, we get sessional chairs to include a brief sort of overview of the session, a sessional pitch, if you will, which Helen will tell you a little bit more about in a moment. And I believe I now pass over to Helen. Helen? Do we have any sign of Helen? Is she right? Perhaps Helen has not arrived to the meeting, so I don't pass over to Helen. I continue to talk. Okay, so last year, these were our sessional chairs. And basically, we said to colleagues, anybody can be a sessional chair, so long as they have an interest in the topic, whether that's a personal interest or an academic interest. And luckily enough, many of these colleagues had areas of specialism in the areas that they chaired the session for. As it turns out, don't have a sort of academic specialism in social class and social mobility, but I'm very proudly from a working class background, consult my Liverpool accent. So I chaired the social class and social mobility session. I'm also aware of Helen has just joined, so I'll pass over to Helen now for the next slide.
Yeah, really sorry there. So had trouble getting back in, so I hope I don't repeat anything you've said already, Jamie. Yes, so this is just kind of a sample of kind of how the chairs introduce themselves before a session. This goes out with the email. So this was from Dr. Morgana Lizio Wilson, who does kind of research in gender, and she sent out this message before the session, and that kind of draws people in and gives them an idea of what we're going to talk about. And then at the beginning, you know, sometimes the chairs share personal experiences, or they might kind of pose particular questions. And that just kind of helps, I guess, the conversation flow so that people aren't just sort of turning up and it's kind of, you know, feels a little bit cold or kind of, you know, they're not quite sure what to talk about. And they kind of sort of facilitate those sessions. Next slide, please, Jamie. So obviously we were keen to know how the sessions were going. So we sent out a little kind of feedback form, and we had some really nice feedback from staff and students who've attended. They really liked the format of the session, so they liked the fact that both staff and students could come along, and it kind of helped build bridges a little bit and kind of made us, I think, in general, feel a bit more approachable. People talked about it being an opportunity for open-minded discussions. And also people were coming not just to talk about their own experiences, but to listen to the experiences of others. So they talked about like learning about the perspectives of other people as well. So that was really nice. We also asked permission for some quotes that we could use for advertising in future. So I think we've got those on the next slide. So that's really lovely. So we can kind of now put that on our posters if we would like to. In general, the feedback was positive. We did have some suggestions for change. And mostly that was just, we'd had a couple of sessions that unfortunately had to get cancelled at last minute. Some of that we can't avoid if chairs are ill, but we've also expanded our team. So it was just me and Jamie running everything to begin with. We've just welcomed another colleague, Matthew, who's going to help us. And that way we've got a little bit of slack as well if something happens and we're not able to run the session. And then, sorry, Jamie, next slide, please. In terms of the impact so far for the department and beyond, so I don't know if Jamie's already said, but during sessions, we take anonymized notes. We always check first if people are happy with that. They're very kind of high level summaries. It's not kind of specific accounts of what's happened. And then we kind of feed those forwards to our EDI committee and kind of senior leadership teams. And some of the things that have come out of that so far, I hope I'm all right for time, is one of our staff members is now running neurodiversity office hours. So that's Sharuni. The notes are going to be used to kind of inform some EDI training for students in the future. And there's also, I know you've made links, Jamie, with Dr. Thomas Davies through kind of T-Fun and looking at kind of creating a working class and first generation student group together with him. So those are some of the things that have come out of that. And sort of, I think for our last slides, we've got next steps as well. So we're hoping to expand this beyond psychology. So we've already been talking to other departments here. There's lots of psychologists in education. We also presented this at DART-P, the BPS conference, and there were a few people there interested in setting up their own inclusion cafes. So we're putting together what we're calling an Inclusion Café starter pack, but that's a very nice graphic there that Jamie generated. Just basically saying what we do, how we've set it up, what our experiences of it have been, and also offering to support people through their first kind of 1 or 2 cafes. Yeah, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you, Helen. That was excellent. Lovely to hear the fantastic work that you're doing over in Exeter. Do we have any questions for Helen and Jamie? You want to put your hands up because sometimes I won't see the full screen. Yes, Kate, we have a question from Kate.
Oh, sorry. Hello. Thank you so much. It's really lovely and really interesting. And I would absolutely love to steal it and do it here. I wondered if you could tell me, sorry, this is quite a boring question, what your general kind of attendance has been like in terms of students showing up. So we're sometimes having trouble, or those students say they're keen on this sort of thing on the day they turn out not to be there. And I'm just interested in knowing what your attendance has been like and if you've had any good ways of getting students in particular to come in and engage.
Excellent question, Kate. Are you okay if I answer this, Helen?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So it's really variable, and it's variable depending on the session. So and also as the Inclusion Café has gone on for a few years now, it's become more embedded in the department. So in the beginning, we were lucky if we got a handful of students and staff turning up to have a conversation about some of these really important topics. And now that we're sort of a mainstay of the department, you know, we now get some students who are sort of, they're asking us when the schedule for the Inclusion Cafe is going to be released. So attendance has definitely increased since it's become more embedded in the department, but also there are some sessions that are just more popular than others. So a great contrast is the Women in Psychology session. So this is our most popular session. So sometimes we can't even fit everybody into the room. So, you know, I'm sat on the floor or on a table or something. And so we always start with that session because it begins with a buzz. And that contrasts men's mental health, which is we did a single men's mental health session, the first one last year, and we had very few attendees for that. Men in particular are a difficult group to sort of get into these things, particularly to talk about their mental health. But I would say the average session probably has about a dozen or a few more people. Do you think that's a good average, Helen?
Yeah, I do. And even those where there were only a few people, like for instance, you mentioned the men's mental health session, that was a very powerful session. And I think the smaller numbers of people actually kind of contributed to that feeling of safety because people shared quite personal experiences within that. So it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but it just is like, it's very variable. And for women in STEM, we're sort of rushing to try and find extra chairs because it's a female dominated department in terms of the undergraduates. Psychology.
So we always start with that because it creates a real buzz, you know. So maybe everybody think that's what every session's going to be like if they go to that one.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Do we have we've got time for maybe one more question, or I might ask one. Oh, thank you. Please do use the Padlet. So sometimes if there's something that sort of an afterthought, please do pop that onto the Padlet for Jamie, Helen, Liam and myself, and we will be reviewing the Padlet throughout the day. Just on your point, Kate, we run similar events, and what we find is the timetabling and finding those slots. But what that does mean is that we don't have that regularity and consistency with a specific time, and then trying to match that with our joint honours programs, and also our students are allowed to take, you know, they take optional modules, so it's not all, it is really tricky. Our sessions which are probably most popular are well-being, which is arts and crafts that we do, so we keep it very low sort of stakes in that sense, and we provide pizzas, and sometimes we'll do pastries as well. So we sort of thinking about the cost of living. Obviously we can't do that for every single session, but we try to do at least one weekly one and have that around lunchtime, so we have a pull in. We've had alpacas visit the department, we've had them inside. Health and safety was very interesting. So there is and alerts as well. We struggle to sometimes, you know, to get things on a timetable that are not timetabled events. There's differences. So it's great to hear that you're having, you know, so many students attend, and I would just love to hear so much more from you, Helen and Jamie.
So the timetabling thing was certainly a challenge for us in the beginning, and we tried a few different strategies. One was actually sending an email to the department and asking them what slots they think would be most suitable for set sessions. It took so long to get that information that it actually inhibited our ability to schedule the sessions. So now we choose one time, Wednesday afternoon. It's always Wednesday afternoon, and that's been our best strategy. And now that sort of Wednesday afternoon slot is associated with the Inclusion Cafe.
Nice. We also social media, Instagram. We have our own channel, and we use Teams for a lot of our communications, but our students like the Instagram account, and we have student ambassadors that we pay, and they do the social media because I'm not very artistic as well. And
I feel you there.
Thank you. That nicely moves us on